Hello everyone, it's Uncle Destiny here with you, and it's time to get the reading in for the month of April. I know many of us have been struggling with everything that's been going on with the pandemic, and I know many of us are wondering what's going to be coming next, and especially why or not some things didn't foretell this was going to happen. Well, the truth of the matter is, sometimes some things aren't going to be foretold because they need to see how you experience them. If you can always avoid a problem, how do you learn from the problem? And I think in some ways the drum from last week was the closest we were going to get to any type of a warning that was coming. So let's see what this week, this weekend going into April, holds for everyone. All right, so with this throw, we have a much tighter clustering. It's not as spread out. And I think that's also an element of what we've been experiencing here, where we've got a lot of people trying not to be spread out and all over the place. But it's also resulted in a lot of people being all over each other and being confronted with what it means to spend this much time with either your partner, your family, in some cases, in your coworkers that are also dealing with a place of stress. And we've been seeing a lot of some of our deeper nature as well. So what we've got here, well, let's be frank. We've got an aspect of where all the main bows are clustered across each other. And that's because everything is still very deeply connected. And we're talking the sense of work, we're talking the sense of family, and we're talking the sense of home. And in this case, family is also associated with social and our social connections. But we're going to actually start not with the main bones as we usually do. We're going to start over here with the dice, which came up as number 5. And this is representing the 5th house of the zodiac. Now, why I go there is that this 5th house represents romance, play, self-expression, and creativity. And I go there because these are a lot of the things that are going to be needed as we move into this next month, as we reach a point of seeing whether or not the efforts that have been put forth have been successful, as we deal with all the realizations that this period of restricting our abilities to walk around and be social, which in really ways really is more about physical distancing than social distancing, because we can socialize in many ways, as we've seen. This is much more about our physical space being restricted, and the aspect of what has it had a play on deepening the connection with your partner, or meaning that your connection with your partner is something that is probably going to be ending or needs to shift. Our sense of being able to play and be able to stretch the body from a period of time of being constrained, almost like a hibernation, if you will. Our self-expression, what are the things that we saw within ourselves during this experience? What did we see about the world around us, and how are we expressing that? And the creativity, for the fact that for some people have been reintroduced to the idea of cooking or creating crafts or just being able to create new works of art. But this is, again, all tied into what we're going to be perpetuating out into the world as we move forward into this next month, as either this continues for a while longer, or we are able to now move around and begin to re-socialize and reconnect. So that's why we come back to what's going on here with the work, the home social, and the family social bones. And you notice they are so on top of each other, they're so tangled, but they do make a definitive shape, and it's kind of like an H or an N. And with that, or even more so, if you also look at it more this way, they make the does not equal sign. So there's the equal sign with the line with it. So there's a lot of things that are going to be coming up in this next month that do not equal out the way they normally have when it comes to our sense of romance, our sense of play, our sense of self-creation, our sense of self-expression. And the things that we have seen as being the items that drive our world, our lives, they're called into question. For some, the idea is capitalism. For others, it's a sense of what does it mean for healthcare? Another, it means what have we seen from the true nature of the people that we have put in places of power? Who might actually have been better options for put in place of power, and who should never be placed in power? These things do not equal anymore, or they will begin not to equal in the way they have. Now, we've also got the shell, which is turned inwardly, and it's directly under both the work as well as our family bones. So those are also going to be talking about the internal recognitions that have happened, both in our sense of work and our relationships there, as well as the sense of our families and greater standpoint of our sense of society. These are the things we have to look more internally about as opposed to externally about. Who do we now know? Who do we now feel needs to be in our lives? Who do we feel no longer needs to be there? What work do we feel we are not doing or can be doing better? But it's all going to be about internal searching. Now, beyond that, when we look at the other bones going on here, and you also notice that we've got the broken rib bone here next to the home bone. So we're also dealing with the struggles about what does it mean for our incomes and our sense of home, which has been threatened by, well, many of these shutdowns. And as well as the battles that will ensue to make sure we are able to keep going from there. So there's going to be effort, strife. There's going to be questions about whether or not some homes are still in place. And that goes back to what's going on here with our family/social bone and the realizations about who we have spent so much time with. Over here, we have the quartz crystal. And you'll notice it's closer to the spinal column. And this is also opening, which shows that, again, we need to be looking at this from the memories of this experience, because this is an experience. This is now part of who we are. This is part of the experience, and we can't wipe it away. But we've got to look at it from the place where we are not lost in our sense of emotion. We're not lost in our sense of fear. The biggest thing that happens in a situation, whether it's this or others, is that sense of fear will cause us to make poor decisions. Will help us make decisions that we don't look at the far-reaching consequences. And as we come out of this, we need to be looking at this from the crystal from multiple angles, but we've got to be looking at it not from a place of fear. What did we learn? What do we want to do differently? Because we have to do things differently. And lastly, we have the quartz, or I should say lastly, and here in this portion of the spread, we have the copper piece. And the copper piece, again, is our connection with spirit. And this is the aspect of spirit is here. It's not really touching anything. It's got a number of the support bones around it. It's got inspiration, but it's right now doing the appraisal. Spirit is doing the appraisal of how people acted, how we responded, how we connected, how we didn't connect. Spirit is assessing whether we have learned the lesson that the quartz piece over here is pretty much trying to get us to learn. That self-expression that helps us be better, not lost in our ego. Now, we've got a couple of other smaller pieces here off at the edge, and all 5 stragglers. And these are coming, we're not going to know about these until at least the summer. I'm going to say at least July. June maybe at the earliest, but there's stuff that's coming in that's support-based. Now, we also, with this one here, which is also closest to our Dinker card that we pulled, which is the Talons of the Eagle. It represents strength, bravery, and power. So what this is also saying is that we have to be looking at the strength, bravery, and power that it takes to shift the experiences we've dealt with. We have to have the power and strength to deal with those things that are no longer properly equaling out. And it means we're going to have the grip to say, no, we can't do this again. We have to change. And there is support for that. Now, this one is going to take time to do it, but it is starting in motion as long as we are doing the inner work and we're doing it not from a place of being ruled by our negative emotions, not by our fear, not by our hate, not by our ignorance. It's operating from that sense of our rational mind, our mind that actually says that everyone has worth. So, this is what the ancestors and the Orishas have to say for the month of April. I wish you well. I wish you the blessings of them. And remember, we need to grow, we need to change, and we need to be able to be more than what we have been. Ultimately, learn from the past so we do not make the same mistakes again. And there are a multitude of things going on.